the end result is the atmosphere. The end result is that personality. And that results from an awareness, and that awareness results in actions, doing things that allow the team's inherent intelligence and creativity to emerge, so that it results in this personality or atmosphere or dynamic.
So today we are talking about Creating Intelligent Teams by Anne Rod and Marita Fridjhon. It's the second book in our Talking Teams, and we're going to review it, unpack some of the key concepts in the book and why we think it's an important read and what you would gain from having read it. It was published in, I think it was 2016, 2017, 2016 for the first time. And it's a very interesting, different way of looking at teams and leading teams. Most of the books that I have read about that, they talk about the things you would typically find in the sort of leadership literature, where it focuses on outcomes, on teamwork and collaboration, and how to measure your team's performance and all of that stuff. This book takes a very different take on that. Instead of looking at the individuals in the team and how to motivate them and lead them, this book has a very interesting approach where it looks at the relationships that exist between the people in the teams and how to, as the leader and as team members, how to focus on that entity of the team itself that contains all the relationships instead of specifically on the individuals. And it's quite groundbreaking, wouldn't you say, Alison?
I would say, I mean, certainly for the work that we do as team coaches, this is where we do most of our work, is with the relationships within the team. And when I was looking into the authors of the book, I came across a great interview. Actually, it had Faith Fuller and Marita Fridjhon in the interview. And what I loved about what they said was that that people seldom leave jobs, but they are most often leave relationships. I love that. So how many times do you find somebody leaving a team because they hate their manager? Not because they don't like the work itself. Both of them have worked at very high level and doing various consulting practices, management consulting, and have been doing it for a long time. And Marita Fridjhon is one of the co-founders of CRR Global and the work of ORSC, which is Organizational Relationship Systems Coaching. So instead of coaching the individual, we are looking at all of the people in the space and what they make up together, the sum of the parts, in other words. So we discovered this book when David and I both trained with CRR Africa to become team coaches. And our minds were blown when we discovered that these relationship systems are not just about teams, but they're also about families, and they're about relationships, and they're about any system where people come into relationship with each other for a period of time. It forms its own personality. And that's how we discovered the book. It was sitting on the back table after I did my first training course. I was like, oh, I think I better have that one. And it really has been a great foundation for the work that we do. This book, in essence, becomes 5 training programs. This forms the basis of 5 different training programs. So you can understand why this is at quite a high level, this book.
So this book tells you on the back page, it says that it will provide a resource, an information resource for you on how to recognize the influence on and dynamics of individuals and teams, how to enhance team performance, how effective leaders can boost productivity and build intelligent teams, how to access and release the potential in teams, how to navigate change successfully, how to lead diversity and create culturally intelligent teams. And that's in 170 pages, all of that.
So it's a must buy, I think. We can say right away, you better own this book if you're in a team or a team leader.
It's also full of examples and stories about real teams, I think, that the authors have worked with. What was going on in the team, what action was taken, what happened as a result.
Yeah, very powerful and with very clear tools that you could use.
I think because this book was self-published, I think, and we found out about it through our training. I think it's quite, it's not as out there as maybe Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's not available in bookshops. You can only order it from Amazon in the US, as far as I know. And so it limits the potential audience of the book, because someone's not going to stumble into a bookstore and happen to find it on a shelf. They would need to know about it first in order to want to buy it. And I'm hoping that through this video, the book can reach a wider audience, because I think there's a lot of value in it for people beyond the team coaching and consulting worlds. The book is about how your team can work as a creative and self-supporting team. All the processes and the tools you need are described so you can easily understand how the team works, what it needs to do and address, and how to be aware of the team's strength far beyond individuals. Managers, CEOs, coaches, and anyone dealing with teams and relationships should read it. Exclamation mark.
Wow. That's a good one.
Then I looked for a negative review, and out of, I think there's 17 reviews on the Amazon website and about 3 on Goodreads. The only negative review I could find was someone saying that they ordered the book and it arrived and it was damaged, 1 star. But it says nothing about the content and what they thought about that.
So that was more a review of Amazon's delivery partners rather than the content.
I think so.
That's so funny. I love that. All right, so basically good reviews. So let's dive then into some of the key concepts of this book. So we're going to keep it quite high level. Everyone is busy. We certainly don't want to take hours to review the book. One of the key concepts is team intelligence, what team intelligence is, and why we should care, what the benefits of team intelligence are. So the idea that when people get together,
I've got a question.
Oh, yes, you in the back. What's your question?
So team intelligence, that surely means if you add up everyone's IQ in the team, that's the team intelligence, right?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, we could do that, but I've got a horrible feeling that either people don't know their intelligence or they won't share it. And if they do share it, then they probably belong to Mensa. So let's work with a different concept, David, which is that team intelligence is that idea that it's greater than the sum of the parts. That in some teams, you can walk into the space and you can almost feel that the ideas are popping, that there's a kind of crackling energy in the team. And that is when the teams feel like there's no barriers to being able to share and to tap into the inherent intelligence in the team. But in other teams, you'll walk into that space and it'll feel quiet. Quiet doesn't equal creativity. Quiet doesn't equal intelligence. Often what quiet can equal is a fear of speaking up, a fear of conflict, a fear of being the tall poppy. So team intelligence is really that idea of being able to harness what everybody has access to, and then even more so, what's greater than just the individual. The 5 principles of relationship systems intelligence. The first one is that every relationship system has its own unique identity. Decoded, that means that every team or organization or family or relationship has its own personality. So we've spoken about that. So each team is unique. And sometimes you'll hear a team member saying, well, we didn't used to do it like that in my old team. We used to do it differently. That's because each team is unique. So that's principle number 1. So that's kind of, we all get that. We understand that. Principle number 2, this is slightly a little bit weirder, that every team member acts as a voice of the system. So remember, we are trying to access that almost unspoken dynamic of what's happening in the system. So if we assume that all of our, let's imagine there are you and me and 4 other team members in our team, David, that every person has got the ability to voice what needs to be voiced for the team or for the system, then that means that all voices need to be heard and are very, very important. And we refer to that in coaching as the golden rule. So it allows everybody to feel that what they have to say is valid. So that is the second principle of relationship systems intelligence. The third one is that every system is naturally intelligent, generative, and creative. And decoded, I think what that means is that if you put a bunch of us in a room and we have to build something, I'm thinking about that recent Lego that event that you attended and you were part of, David. Put a bunch of Lego on the table and you give people some goals and rules, they're going to build something amazing, much more amazing than just the 1 or 2 people could do. There's a natural, inherent intelligence and creativity. We can't help ourselves. I think it's just the way we humans are.
Exactly. And often what happens in teams is someone will say something like, I've got this really stupid idea. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
And I want to hear what you think. And then they'll say the stupid idea. And someone else will say, but actually, it's not entirely stupid because this part of it is true. And someone else will come in and say, based on that, this is an idea of what we can do together as a team to help achieve our results. And someone else will come in and they'll say, in order to do that, this is the process that we need to follow to make it real. And so this is how a team creates something using its intelligence.
We build. So if we're in a team that's very quiet, we're not building very much. Okay, relationship systems intelligence point number 4. Relationship systems rely on roles, and decoded, that means sometimes those roles are job descriptions, sometimes those roles are who we are in that system and how we act, and sometimes those roles are absent roles. Sometimes there can be people who are no longer in the system, who are still having a voice within the system, like an ex-team leader who everybody loved, or a whatever. So we need roles. And just because we've named the job titles doesn't mean to say we're actually clear about all the roles.
Given that a team or a relationship system will organize itself into roles, what happens then when somebody leaves or somebody new comes into a team?
That's very interesting, isn't it? And often that isn't really dealt with within the team system. There's a kind of shuffling that happens, and it's quite unconscious and unspoken. And sometimes that can really disrupt the roles that are not job titles, because there could be what they call a personality clash that can often be named in that way.
So if there's a manager that's leading the team, and this manager is fierce, you know, like a bulldog. And they're coming in and they're holding people accountable, and they leave. Sometimes what will happen is a new manager will come in and they can't help but start to behave in that same way. Have you noticed that?
Right, because the other members of the team are asking for that. Not in a verbal way, but it's kind of expected.
It's interesting.
It
So
is
that means that these roles that they belong to the system, right? They don't belong to particular individuals, which is also part of this fourth principle.
But the last principle is that relationship systems are in a constant state of change. And decoded, what that means is change is often avoided, and teams want to remain static. We've worked out exact processes. We've worked out exactly the way things need to go. We are delivering on our objectives. Let's not change, because now we've got the perfect way forward. And of course, the truth is, what that means is that anything that needs to emerge, the change that's trying to emerge, has to be a forceful emergence. It has to push through, because they're not in that sort of flexible way of allowing change to happen naturally and incrementally. And that's when you can often have conflicts. If you're not adapting and adjusting at regular intervals, then the change is going to be much more in your face.
Right. So instead of asking the question, who did what to who, which is kind of our default, right? Ask the question, what is trying to emerge here? And it's a very different approach then.
I think if we could maybe like just put that up in big letters on every team's desk, what is trying to emerge? That would be the go-to mantra, I think, in every conversation, because that gives you access to the conversation around all voices. Let's have everyone's thought on that question. It's the key to opening that door, I think.
Yeah, so we've wrapped the 5 principles of RSI, or Relationship Systems Intelligence. How do you actually apply this? This is all theory. What do you do as the manager with this?
Well, I think before you can apply tools, I love their 3-phase approach that they speak about with working with teams. And they've got a great way, which we use in our coaching work. It's very easy to remember: meet, reveal, align, and action. So in my head, I was trying to think of a metaphor before we had our conversation today. And I was thinking, let's say we decide to join people at a restaurant and we come in late. They've already been there for some time. When we arrive, the first thing we want to do is meet them where they're at. Find out, how's everybody doing? Where you're all at? Have you ordered yet? Have you not ordered? What's everyone feeling like? A big slap-up meal or a smaller meal? What's happening? So we are meeting that group, that little system where they're at. Then what the management would do, but actually I think this is really a bit more of a coachy role, David. I don't know if you feel how you feel on that, but the idea of revealing the system to itself, that is the thing of reflecting back and allowing the team to see where they're at. So let's keep with our restaurant metaphor. So we've met the people, we now can reveal to them, I see everyone's really, really hungry today, and you guys are going to order the whole menu. So it's a very simple thing. It's reflecting back what we've seen, what we've felt, what we've heard.
So the process in the restaurant might be, we're going to all order our food, right, collectively as a table. And then stuff will happen in the way that people go about that and the way they interact with each other as they go about that. One might be pretty clear, like, I'm going to order this. Someone else might say, I want you to order first so then I can decide what to order after I've heard your order. And so all
Yes.
these interactions and dynamics would be playing out. And without that being reflected back, people might not be aware that it means anything.
Love that. Thank you, David. You've made my metaphor, which is a clumsy one at best, into something that really could work. So from those interactions, we, or whoever is in the reveal role, can see if there's a difference. Like, for instance, I'm going to wait for Sindiswa to order her food because she's my team leader. So I really want to see what the budget is here. Is she going for the steak or is she going for the burger? I just want to be correct on that. So you can start to see almost little threads of interaction and dynamics emerging, and which are not always visible when you're in the system. You almost need to step out of it to be able to look back and hold up that mirror and be like, this is what we're seeing.
So the leader or the manager can do that only up to a certain limit, because they are part of the system, but they are slightly removed as well, in the sense that they are able to observe what's going on. So they could reflect things back that they're seeing, but it would be hard to reflect things back where they're involved in that dynamic themselves.
Very hard, really, really hard, because it's hard to see oneself, one's own influence on a system. Really hard.
That talks, I think, about the Johari window, which is like what I know about me, what you know about me, what I don't know about me.
But you do.
Yeah, so it's like the whole public and private thing.
Yeah.
And the way to go about finding out and growing is through feedback. And part of the book covers that. It's all around what was my intention, what was the impact that I had, and what could I do better or differently or more of? How can I learn from that? So I think in a lot of teams, people don't really go find out from their peers or their subordinates or manager, like, how am I impacting? And what feedback could I get that's useful to me and to the team? And if done in a safe way, where, I mean, we're not talking about character assassination of people, we're talking about a caring, direct approach to giving feedback, then everyone will benefit.
And I think the other element of caring, directive feedback is really the impact of how you behave, or what you're saying and doing, on the system. Because we are all about the system in this particular book. We're interested in, if you shout out, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard, how does that impact on the overall system in terms of people wanting to contribute, rather than, just on that individual?
Exactly. And I think also the tendency sometimes, or often, I'm not sure how often is the case here, but if one of my teammates does something or says something, or they don't say something or don't do something, and there's an impact on me, I immediately assume their intention was to hurt my feelings or piss me off.
Yes, take it personally. Yeah.
I take it personally. Whereas if we had a conversation about it, I might learn that the intention was something totally different. Somehow it just landed wrong for me. So there's a part for myself to look at about what landed wrong for me, and why did it trigger me? Why did it hurt my feelings or whatever the case is. And there's maybe an awareness piece for the other person around, even going into something with the best of intentions, there was still an impact. So what can I do differently? What am I assuming that I shouldn't be assuming?
So to go back to the three-phase approach, so there's the meet, there's allowing the system to reveal itself, and then revealing that back to the team. Again, you could see how I digressed. Just for our audience, we got very digressed in that world, because it is a very tangled space to work, especially if you're in the system itself. So this is a sort of plug for Team DNA. Give us a shout. We can help you untangle that messy ball of wool. And then the final part is to, once all of that untangling has happened and the RSI, the relationship systems intelligence within the system, and this doesn't happen quickly, this is a slow evolutionary process. Once the relationship systems intelligence has started to grow within the team, then you're looking within that as at alignment and action. So we may not always agree. Agreeing on everything is probably not always possible, but we can align behind actions and we can move forward with those actions as a system, as a team. And that makes it sound really simple, but of course it is really not.
Once a system has seen itself, and it's been revealed to itself, it has a tendency to autocorrect. What do you think that means?
I think if I think about myself, like let's say, for example, at the end of this podcast, you give me a little bit of feedback and say, well, when you said that, I felt that I didn't want to speak anymore. I'm going to automatically trying to change that behavior, I think, just in myself, because I am aligned behind the goals of building our business and our brand together. And I think most teams and systems will want to improve naturally. So if I was a team leader, how could I use this book practically, David?
So that's a great question. And I can only give my answer to that. I think all of us would come up with our own answer. Mine would be, look at those five different principles of relationship systems intelligence. Take note of what's happening in your team and try to guess or to place which of those principles is at play based on what you're seeing happening or sense is happening in your team. And then follow that three-phase approach of meet, reveal, align, and action. And each of those principles and stages or phases has a bunch of tools in the book that tell you when to use it, how to use it. These are the steps, and they're just ready to be tried out and used. I get that there might be quite a bit of apprehension to just take a tool from a book and use it. What I would say is that these are tried and tested, and the only way to really know is to jump in and try one and get a feel for it.
It's really important to ask permission if you're going to do something like all voices, or I don't know, any of the apply different listening levels, or think about distributed leadership, all the kind of key ideas that they have in the book. Really be aware that you need to be overt, you need to be open about what's happening in the system. So would we recommend, how many stars would we give this book, David?
I would give it 4 out of 5. I'm reserving that 5 out of 5 for something mythical.
What, you want a dragon? What's the mythical part?
It would have to be so good that it disturbs the fabric of space and time itself to get a 5.
Wow. Okay. Well, back to Earth. I am going to give this book, it's difficult. On content, I'm going to give this book 5 out of 5 stars. On presentation, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go to 3.5. Let's think about next month. I think I'm just going to have to be really, really honest with you and tell you that we are going with Radical Candor next month. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next month.